Have you ever found yourself watching the news, wondering why some laws get passed that just don't seem to make sense for most people? It's a question that really gets to the core of how our government works, and it's all about political influence. So, how does this whole game really work? And is it a good thing, or is it a major threat to the whole system?
And that really gets to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got this idea of lobbying as a fundamental democratic right, a way for people to have their voices heard. But on the other hand, well, there's the feeling that it's become a system where money just talks way louder than people. This debate, it's as old as the country itself.
So to really wrap our heads around this, we've got to go way back to the beginning. Now, the founders of the United States were brilliant, no doubt about it, but they also kind of baked a fundamental conflict right into the system. This clash between our rights as individuals and the risk of powerful groups just taking over.
Look, on one side, the First Amendment is crystal clear. You have the right to petition your government. It's your right to show up and complain, to ask for change. But right from the jump, there was this deep-seated fear. You had people like James Madison warning that powerful factions or special interests could hijack the whole process for themselves. And that tug of war has been at the center of American politics ever since.
And you know what? Nothing drives this point home quite like the long, messy history of political scandals in America. These are the moments that seem to confirm all our worst fears about how things really get done in Washington.
And this is not some new problem. Not at all. You can trace a pretty clear line of major scandals across the centuries, from the Gilded Age, through the Roaring Twenties, and right up into our own lifetimes. So let's dig into a few of the most notorious examples.
Okay, picture this. It's the 1870s. A big, powerful railroad company called Credit Mobilier is getting investigated for padding its construction costs. So what's their solution? Pretty simple, actually. They start handing out company stock to key members of Congress. It was a pretty blatant attempt to buy their silence. And for a while, it actually worked, until the whole thing blew up, and a couple of congressmen got censured.
And the scale of this stuff, wow, it could be absolutely staggering. Fast forward to the 1920s and the Teapot Dome scandal. Here you had the Secretary of the Interior, a guy named Albert Fall, taking huge bribes from oil companies. In exchange, he gave them secret access to the Navy's oil reserves. The bribes he took were worth about $4 million in today's money, and it landed him in prison, the first cabinet member in history to get locked up for crimes he committed in office.
All right, let's jump ahead to our own time, where the scandals just got more complicated. You had this super lobbyist, Jack Abramoff. He wasn't just influencing politicians. He was running a massive fraud scheme, overbilling his clients to the tune of a mind-boggling $85 million. His conviction, along with a bunch of other officials, sent absolute shockwaves through D.C., and, you guessed it, sparked a whole new round of public anger.
And that outrage, that's a really key part of this whole story. Because whenever a scandal this big blows up, it kicks off a cycle that's almost predictable. It's this constant dance between corruption and then the inevitable push for reform.
You've seen this movie before, right? A huge scandal hits the news, exposing some crack in the system. The public gets furious and demands action, and all that pressure forces Congress to step in and pass new laws that are supposed to fix the problem. But, as we're going to see, these fixes don't always stick.
And you see this play out over and over. In the early 1900s, fears about corporations buying elections led to the Tillman Act. Later, the Watergate scandal, which was a true national crisis, gave us the Ethics in Government Act. And more recently, the Jack Abramoff fiasco led directly to the Honest Leadership and Open Government Act. Scandals force change. But the real question is, does that change actually last?
Well, not always. Because here's the thing. Just as predictably as reform follows a scandal, the people with money and power find new ways to get what they want. They find loopholes. They create new workarounds.
There's this fantastic quote from two Supreme Court justices that just nails it. They said, "Money, like water, will always find an outlet." Think about that. No matter how high you build the walls, no matter how many rules you put in place, money is fluid. It finds the cracks, and it always finds a way to flow back into the system.
And boy, in 2010, the Supreme Court didn't just poke a hole in that dam, they blew it wide open. The Citizens United decision completely changed the rules of the game. The court ruled that corporations and unions spending money on elections was a form of free speech, and so they could spend as much as they wanted. The floodgates were officially open.
So what happens next? Well, this decision basically gives birth to the super PAC. It's a new, incredibly powerful tool. Here's the deal.
As long as a super PAC doesn't officially coordinate with a candidate's campaign, and that's a key phrase, they can raise and spend unlimited cash from corporations, unions, and billionaires to either support or attack any candidate they want. The water had found a massive new outlet.
So what you have is this constant cat-and-mouse game between reform and new ways to influence politics. And it's totally changed where the fight is happening. It's not just about Washington, D.C. anymore.
You know, we all tend to focus on what's happening on the national stage, but so much of the real action has moved to the local level. Today, every single one of the 50 states has its own set of rules for lobbying. It's created this incredibly complex patchwork of regulations. As things have gotten both tighter and looser at the federal level, the states have become the new front line.
So at the end of the day, you've got this two-front war for influence. On one side, you still have the traditional top-down game, professional lobbyists, big donors, all focusing on state capitals where the rules might be a little different. But on the other side, you've got this powerful bottom-up force. Grassroots movements from the Tea Party to Occupy Wall Street using social media to organize and put pressure on the system, proving that money isn't the only way to be heard.
And that brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to that same huge challenge that James Madison was wrestling with centuries ago. How do we protect everyone's right to speak their mind while also making sure our government is listening to all of us, not just the ones with the deepest pockets? Finding that balance, well, that's the ongoing, messy, and absolutely essential job of our democracy.